Morning, all. We just want to test the sound if it's going through clear.
Good morning, CEO.
Yes. So, yeah, we just
Yeah,
want to test the sound.
you're audible.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
Are you okay, Mr. Matikizela? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
he. Okay, sure. You're also audible, I think. Whoever is going to be responding can also test their mics now. CEO.
We're all in one room, so I think they will be audible.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, CEO. You can remove the presentation for now, when you will just project it when requested to do so. When we start. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. The chairperson has alerted me that she's facing some network problems. But I've seen that she has joined. We'll start in a minute. Our apologies for the delay.
Good morning, honorable members, colleagues, and everyone on the platform. My sincere apologies. I was having network issues. Was struggling to connect. Thea, do we reach quorum to start with the meeting?
Good morning once again, Chair. Yes, Chair. We have a quorum. We can start, Chair. Go ahead.
Welcome, colleagues. I can see on the platform, we have the Minister. Welcome. We have the Deputy Minister. Welcome, Minister and the Deputy Minister. I can see also Judge Cameron. Today's meeting is to get an annual report of 2023-2024 financial year of JICS. Initially, we were supposed to be meeting the Department of Correctional Service to receive their annual report. Unfortunately, there is a correspondence that the Minister would have sent to the Office of the Speaker of not being ready with the annual report of the department due to still AG still finalizing their annual report in terms of findings. So there is a dispute between the department and AG on one of the findings. So until that matter has resolved, and then the department will appear before the portfolio committee with regards to their annual report. Like I said, good morning, colleagues, and you're welcome to the meeting, to the virtual platform of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services. Sia, do we have any apologies?
Morning once again, Chair. The apology we've received, Chair, it's from the Office of the Minister. The Minister will have to leave around about at 10. His other meetings to at 10 to 2. We're told he's attending the JCPS cluster meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have the agenda, Sia? Read us the agenda so that members can, or before you read us the agenda, Diane?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to yourself. I just want to let the Chair that also I'll step out of the meeting but come back again due to the JPPS cluster. Thanks, Chair.
Noted. Thank you, Sia, for flagging. Colleagues, we only have one item on the agenda, which is briefing by JICS on their 2023-2024 financial year. Can we have a mover and a seconder of the agenda? Subsequent also acknowledging to the apologies forwarded by both Minister and the Deputy Minister.
I move, Chair. Dirlene.
Ms. James moves.
And I will second, Chair.
Honorable Engelbrecht seconds. Thank you very much. We can then proceed with the meeting.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Minister.
Sorry to interrupt you. Good morning, honorable members, honorable Chair, Judge, Deputy Minister, all the people on the platform. May I ask, I saw the agenda, but I also have that I have to update the committee today on the parole application.
Recording in progress.
Of lifers. So may I ask you that I just quickly inform the committee on the update of the backlog of parole applications of lifers, seeing that I have to attend the other meeting. With your permission, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Today's meeting was on JICS. You are appearing next week before the Portfolio Committee to brief the committee on vacancies that are appearing with vacancies, the whole range of vacancies in the department, from criminologists, psychologists, nurses, all vacancies that DCS has, including issues of suspensions of officials, those who have been fired and so forth. Will it not be prudent that you can then cluster on issues of lifers, the backlog that you would have eased? Because based on your commitment you made the last time in the Portfolio Committee, you would say by the 15th of October, you should be done with the backlog that was sitting in your table. So I would therefore suggest that you wait for next week, Tuesday, when we are appearing to the portfolio committee, it will be a physical meeting, then you can give us an update. So we'll include it on the agenda.
Okay, you the chair, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, we then proceed. Judge Cameron, if you are ready with your team to then take us through your annual report.
Indeed, Madam Chair, Honourable Chair, and good morning to your honourable members and to all the colleagues. We are indeed ready, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this morning, especially after your arduous week in Gauteng last week, which we know took its toll upon the committee, and we are grateful for the oversight and your presence, including on Friday morning, which I think gave some of the officials at Boksburg perhaps a mild flutter or skrik, as we say. Honourable Madam Chair, our CEO, Mr. Vic Misser, will present our report. All of us are on standby to answer any questions and to supplement what Mr. Misser will now present to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Cameron. This process is yours up until the final briefing. So I will then withdraw from chairing up until you are done briefing the committee.
Thank you, Madam. I ask Mr. Vic Misser, the JICS CEO, to come in.
Morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable members, our Honourable Minister on the platform, DM, our inspecting judge, greetings to all on the virtual platform, extended greetings to my entire team from JICS, who's also present here in the boardroom. We greet you all on behalf of JICS, and it is my privilege to present to you the 2023-2024 annual report. Before I commence, Honourable Chair, Honourable members, I'd like to just highlight 3 corrections in our annual report. They are not material, they are just typographical errors. First one is on page 46. It's the word anyone. It should be anyone and not nanyone. On page 58, case study refers to Modder B. It should be Durban Medium A. And on page 61, the heading is segregations, which refers to natural deaths per region. It should actually be segregations per region. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's commence. I'll move to slide 2, and this covers some of the major source of concerns that go unabated through 2023 and 2024. One of them stands out as a sore thumb, and that is overcrowding, Honourable Chair and Honourable members. We sit with 156,600 inmates and having an allocated bed space of 105,474. This constitutes approximately 48% of overcrowding, and in some instances, you have also witnessed this last week. There's also been some issues with parole boards, and I guess you must have heard most of this when the NCCS appeared before this esteemed portfolio committee. There's also issues of overlong periods of pre-trial detention and those that cannot afford bail less than 1,000 Rand, and we'll highlight more about this as we move through the slides. Another area that we've been watching the space, and that is state patients, sitting at 204 state patients in our books and in our places of confinement that needs urgent attention. As you'd be well aware that some of these patients are a danger to themselves, danger to other inmates, and even officials. We'll also talk about the extended solitary confinement at Supermax prisons, the continuous non-functions or intermittent disruptions in the e-correction system, which is not reliable and has a lot of problems as we move forward in this presentation. JICS underfunding, which we'll highlight when we get into the financials, and also some of the grim assaults and excessive use of violence by some of the EST members on some of the inmates. I'll move to slide 3, and in here, we will talk about some of the issues that encircle JICS and its powers. JICS has handled 720 formal complaints through its complaints unit, and you'd find this on page 50 of our annual report on table 22. The ICCVs, who is our correctional center monitors, they are stationed at the 238 correctional centers across the country, have dealt with approximately 48,720 complaints, which will also be elaborated as I move forward with this presentation. You could also find this on page 69, covered on table 25. What is of the core importance of JICS is its inspections and investigations that it has conducted over the 2023-2024 performance cycle. 148 inspections have been conducted. Of this, 136 were announced inspections, where we give notice to the National Commissioner and all the regional commissioners throughout the country of our visits, our intended visits. And amongst this 148, 12 of them were found to be unannounced. We'll also be talking about the 51 investigations conducted by JICS, and amongst these, some of them are serious in nature, including fatalities in some instances. We have also implemented what we call a robust, efficient complaint mechanism within the organization, and it is part of our phase 2, phase 1 being the implementation of our website, and phase 2 taking over an intranet system, which is the enhancement of our MIS. We have also partnered with JDI SA on the trainings of our correctional center monitors on the subject of prevention, detection, monitoring, and reporting of sexual abuse of LGBTIQ+ inmates in correctional centers. We also play an active role as an affiliated member to the NPM South Africa. This NPM is currently coordinated and housed by the South African Human Rights Commission, and we are amongst other members that support its functioning, including the military ombuds, the health ombuds, IPED, etc. Slide 4. So there has been some progress, and there has been strengthening of relationship between the department and the Department of Home Affairs, specifically in relation to the non-nationals, and ensuring that the deportation orders are secured in order to deal with all these non-nationals. And you'll hear a little more about non-nationals as we move forward. So there has been enhanced cooperation between JICS, NPA, the South African Police Services, to ensure an accountability of some of the officials that have committed misconducts and transgressions in the department. Honorable Chair, honorable members, as I speak to you now, I'm given to understand that the Minister has already submitted the Section A Correctional Services Amendment to the President for assent, and we are awaiting confirmation in this regard from the President. Let us move now into the presentation. I'll move to slide 6. Here you'd find the strategic overview, and this vision, mission, and values was that of the old performance cycle 2023-2024. During the course of 2024, we have already started what we would call the crafting of JICS' own strategy. And here we have drafted a new vision. The vision is responsive oversight protecting human dignity. Our mission has been adjusted to independently monitor conditions and uphold human rights for all in the correctional environment without fear, favor, or prejudice. And we have also redressed our values in line with this new strategy, which aligns to transparency, respect, equality, accountability, dignity, and gives you an acronym TREAD. The next slide covers all our offices and our footprints throughout the country. We've tried to mirror the footprints of that of the department. We currently have our head office in Pretoria, situated in Eco Origins, and Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we were indeed privileged to have you visit us last week, Wednesday, during your busy schedule. We have offices in the Central Management Region, which is based in Bloemfontein, in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, Northern Management Region, which is also stationed at Eco Origins, and the Western Cape, where I'm currently sitting in Cape Town. Our Eastern Cape Management Regional Office is currently housed in the Magistrates Court of East London, and we are in the process of identifying and securing their own permanent office accommodation. The next slide talks about the organizational structure. Here, once again, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, you'll see that this structure is as at 31 March 2024, having a head count of 303 staff, which includes approximately 207 correctional center monitors. But most recently, as of 20th May 2024, the Minister of DPSA has approved a new structure for JICS in line in support of it being constituted as a national government component. And this new structure has an allocation of 477 positions, 74 non-core, and 403 are core activity positions. Currently, 298 of these positions are filled, which equates to a 62.5% occupancy. 179 posts remain unfunded, Honorable Chair, which equates to a 37.5% vacancy rates. And this unfunded positions are currently being dealt with the National Treasury during the budgeting process and the MTF discussions. The next slide moves into actual performance, and I'll take you to slide 10. This slide talks about 238 active centers throughout the country, of which 243 were correctional centers. 5 of them remains closed for an extended period, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, and notably Kalak, that's in the LMN region, and Swellendam, which is in the Western Cape region, has remained closed for extended periods. Their reopening is unknown at this stage. Apart from these two, Brandvlei Maximum in the Western Cape also remains closed. Brits in LMN also remains closed, and Parys in the Free State Northern Cape also remains closed. You'd find this on page 21 of our annual report. Let's talk a little bit about trends and what JICS has concentrated over the last performance cycle. What stands out is overcrowding, the mental illness, the mandatory reporting, the 4 broad areas of mandatory reporting, the infrastructure issues that we are currently faced with at correctional centers, the remand detainees, and obviously lifer paroles that stands out. Let's take you through some of these. On slide 12, once again, total inmate population equates to 156,600 over this performance cycle. The total males that were incarcerated during this performance cycle equates to 146,844, which totals almost 94% of the inmate population. The total females that were incarcerated over this period were 4,494, and which equates to 3% of the inmates population. Juvenile males was 5,034, which equates to 3%, and the females were 145. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, the children were 82, and the little ones under the age of 2 babies that were in our confinements were 66. There you have it, the total state patients sitting at 204. Of this 204, 200 were declared state patients males, and 4 of them were females. 18,795 lifers on our hands, Honorable Chair. 18,795. It is a huge number. In fact, it's just tipping the scale of almost 20,000. You'd find this on page 29 and 30, and more details on the Van Wyk, Van Vieren, and Pashla you'd find on page 32 of this annual report. You may pause, Madam Chair, honorable members, to say that we've also put in a disclaimer on this annual report on page 67 that this report contains statistics that have been provided by DCS on the 28th of May, 2024. Let's drill a little deeper into this. What did we do? And how did we go about doing it? And what was our observations? Out of the 148 inspections conducted, of which 136 was announced, 12 were unannounced. You'd find this on page 24 to 27 on table 4. 22% of this 148 inspections conducted were found to be unsatisfactory, Honorable Chair, honorable members, which equates to 15% of the inspections conducted by JICS. 108 of them were found to be in a satisfactory condition, which equates to almost 73%. And 18 of them, 12%, was found to be in a good standard. Now, just to touch a little bit about the unannounced, that 12, you'll find that on page 27 on table 5. Let me talk about a little bit more about the observations during these inspections. Overcrowding stands out once again. You'd find this on pages 32 up to 34. And here you'd also find some of our observations with regards to facilities with no nurses in some of these centers. You'd find this on page 34, table 14. And just to mention some of the centers, Prince Albert, Heilbronn, Victoria West, there are with no nurses at this point in time as we speak to you. There's no social workers also in some of them. You'd find them on page 35, table 15. In some centers, no educators on page 35, table 16. I'd like to move to investigations. Honorable Chair, down in the block, you would see from 2017-2018 performance cycle, we've moved our investigations, and to the current performance cycle, we've conducted 51 investigations over the performance cycle with the normal allocated staff with no increase of any headcount. One would notice that during the 2020-2021 performance cycle, which stands up at 65, but obviously, Honorable Chair, you would recall that that was during the COVID period. It was stringent lockdowns, and therefore we had to conduct more investigations because more cases were reported to us. I'd like to talk about some of these investigations conducted, and two stands out clearly in my mind, Honorable Chair, which you can find on as case studies on page 45, which was the St. Albans maximum. Here, the title of this, it's on table 21, it's Security versus Human Dignity, Where to Draw the Line. This commenced on the 24th of November, 2023, and just a short synopsis of this was invasive cavity searches of visiting family to the St. Albans maximum inmates. And it is something that I think you should really digest. We've shared these reports with the National Commissioner and the department, and to this esteemed committee, we still await a response. Mossel Bay Youth Center is the other one that stands out in my mind, Honorable Chair, honorable members. It's called a remarkable red cricket bat. In fact, its title is also called Lila, means cry. This is the red cricket bat that is used to bash the youth there. It's not the blue one, because the blue one we found there. The blue one is used to play cricket, and the red one disappeared when we arrived to conduct this investigation on the 18th of December, 2023. You'll find this on page 48 and page 49. Let's talk a little bit about the complaints that we received. These are complaints managed at our head office. 720 of them were transacted through our books. And you would notice 229 of them were as a result of inmate-on-inmate assaults. Another, second highest, is officials on inmates assault. 116 of them that were reported to us, and that has been transacted through our books. Another area that has been complained to us is transfers, where inmates complained about transfers and been pushed away, far away from their homes. 74 instances were reported to us, and other is 64. Now, what we can talk about these complaints, Honorable Chair, honorable members, we cluster these complaints into 5 categories. And you'd find this on page 51 and 52 of our annual report. Cluster 1 deals with appeals, bails, and legal representation. Cluster 2, conversion of sentence, medical release, and reclassification. Cluster 3, communication with family and transfers. Cluster 4, conditions, hunger strikes, food and healthcare issues. And cluster 5 deals with violence, including confiscation of possessions, etc. So there you have the top 5 complaint categories. You'll also see these case studies on page 53 to 55, dealing with assaults on inmate, gang-related use of padlocks, and also Biza Makate, where we also conducted a investigation in terms of the complaint received there. I'll move to slide 15. This slide talks about all our mandatory responsibilities in terms of reporting by the department, where the department is obliged to report on these 4 broad areas. So assault again stands out. I've covered this. But what would be of interest to you on this reporting period is deaths. Unnatural death stands at 123, whilst natural death stands at 505. You'd find this on page 57, graph 10. And the case study referred to here in this instance, I'll refer you to page 59, which was a suicide in Paulsmoor and also Grootvlei Medium A. A little bit on segregations. 4,857 segregations had been reported to us. This is penned on our page 61 as a case study on page 62 and deals with Grootpunt maximum and Worcester female. Mechanical restraints are covered on page 63. We had 40 of them that were recorded, and the case studies on page 64, Mammelsbury medium B and Rebeck West. Now, use of force, permissible use of force and excessive use of force. This is one area that needs a lot of attention. 468 instances were reported to us, and you'd find this on page 64. The case study is on page 65, specifically dealing with Johannesburg female, and these were dated 19 August and 2nd August, respectively. What we've also observed, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, is that 21 cases of suicides occurred. Most of these in the Free State and Northern Cape region. Hanging was the most common method used by inmates. You'd find 16 inmates died as a result of this, which actually equates to 76%. 8 of the 16 occurred in single cells. That means when inmates are put in a single cell, this is the time when they are in the most depressive state and actually succumb themselves to these methods. Other forms that was used to commit suicide is overdose of either the medication that they have been given or hypoglycemia, coma was other reasons also observed during the course of these deaths. This next section deals with the coal face and which covers our directed management regions. Slide 17 is covered on page 68 and 69 of the annual report, and this directorate deals and handles with complaints and requests from the correctional centers through the ICCVs, which is our current correctional center monitors who are currently stationed at all of these centers. I'll take you now to slide 18. This slide talks about all the complaints that has been handled by our correctional center monitors. It totaled 46,598 over the performance cycle, with 203 ICCVs that performed this job. What stands out once again, other 15,236 complaints were received. And in the annual report, under table 70 to 71, table 27, you would find more detailed explanations of what this other is all about. They complain about toiletries, toothpaste, etc., and it goes on. The second most related complaint was healthcare. It equates to 6,499, followed by a request for a social worker of 4,756. Transfer stands out again at 4,503. And communications with family at 4,349. Maybe just a little bit on communications with family. We've conducted a current survey of the number of dysfunctional telephone systems within the correctional centers, and that is already conveyed to the National Commissioner to attend to, as it is a huge problem as inmates cannot communicate with their loved ones. This next slide, 19, talks about our visitors committee, and this is a statutory obligation in terms of Section 94 of the Correctional Services Act, where we have 207 ICCVs, Correctional Center monitors, where 148 meetings were held, and we have 37 seats throughout the country to hold these meetings on a quarterly basis. You'd find this in more detail on page 83. 44 was held in the Northern Management Region, 28 in KwaZulu, 20 in the Eastern Cape, 24 in the Western Cape, and 32 in the Central Management Region, which covers Free State and Northern Cape. Slide 20, here we had 49 stakeholder engagement meetings that was attended in all the regions. You'd find this on page 84. And what is of interest? It is our engagements with Chief Magistrates forums. We've engaged the Chief Magistrate of Pietermaritzburg, Mpangeni magistrates. We had lectures with the South African Human Rights Commission and Lawyers for Human Rights, meeting with the Department of Health, the judiciary in the Western Cape PEC, and many, many others. And that is also covered on slide 21. And it moves forward on slide 22, which covers the Youth Day celebration and further engagements. What I'd like to talk about is bail under 1,000 Rand and those that have been detained for longer than 2 years, remand detainees, which covers the Section 49G, which might be of interest to you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. As at 31 March 2024, 2,344 inmates with bail less than 1,000 Rand are in our places of confinement. In the previous performance cycle, we had 4,594, which we now see a decrease by 51%. But what is concerning is the RDs that are longer than 2 years, Honorable Chair. 3,752 during the current performance cycle. In the last performance cycle, it was 2,215. And here we have an approximate increase of almost 70%. The next slide, which might be of interest to you, is the non-nationals, or what you refer to as foreign nationals. In our places of confinement throughout the country, we are sitting with approximately 22,612 non-nationals or foreign nationals. Honorable Chair, honorable members, this equates to almost 14% of our inmate population. If one looks at the sums, 22,612 over 156,600, it equates to 14% of our inmate population are non-nationals. Just to drill a little bit more down, our males equates to 21,718, whilst the females are 894. There has been an increase from the previous performance cycle by 3,631. The next slide, slide 25, goes a little further and tells you where these non-nationals or foreigners are from. It concludes on slide 26. 690 of these non-nationals are lifers that are sitting in our places of confinement, and the majority of them you would find are from Zimbabwe at 257, Mozambique with 228. I'll leave the rest for you to read. The previous performance cycle, we had 487 non-national lifers. This has increased by 203. We now move into a next section that is dealt with as a branch within JICS, and that is the Directed Support Services. And in this, you would find this area commences from page 95. I'll move to slide 30 and talk to you about the finance supply chain management of JICS, which is contained on page 96, 97, and 98 of our report. Our budget allocation for this 2023-2024 performance cycle was 81,076,000. Of this, we overspent by 1,144,346 Rand, which equates to 1.41% over expenditure. This falls within an acceptable range of Treasury, but nevertheless, it shows that this money was well spent over this performance cycle. And I'll give you a little bit more when I get to the human resources. So within the budget, specific items shows overspending, namely the cost of employees, the overspending on goods and services, the transfers and subsidies, and machinery. Maybe a little bit on our fleet management. It's covered on page 99. We have 30 allocated vehicles. They are all in good condition, and they are well managed, and they are readily audited by all. Our properties has already been canvassed and discussed. We have 4 leased accommodation, with the exception of Eastern Cape Management Region, who is currently accommodated in East London, and we are hoping to get a new accommodation for them. I might pause and indicate that our Honorable Inspecting Judge has already written to the Minister of DPWI to request his interventions on securing a new leased accommodation for the Eastern Cape Management Region. This is the 4th occasion that we're going out on tender for this specific regional office. And therefore, the Inspecting Judge has communicated this to the Minister of DPWI. The next slide, slide 32, covers our human resource management and development. It's covered on page 100 of our annual report. And there's a little bit more that tells you what this unit or directorate does. But I'd like to take you to slide 34, which talks about the entire staff, the head count, which sits at 303. The total staff is 303, of which 17 of them are contract workers, and the bulk of them, you would see, they are the ICCVs, who are our correctional center monitors, sitting at 207. Right at the bottom of the slide, you'd find the personnel-related expenditure. Our actual expenditure was 69, just under 70 million, and our actual COE budget was also 69,855,830. The next slide gives you further details of our headcounts, the inspecting judge on the top with the senior managers, and going right down to our contract staffs at 17, our independent correctional services centers at 207, and our total headcount sitting at 303. What might be of interest that JICS has 4 disabled staff on its payroll. The next slide, slide 36, covers the information technology. Here you'd find the information technology provides robust, integrated, secure information and communication technology. We were most of the time dependent on the department up to and including 2023, when we started what we would call a migration of its own systems. And we are proud to announce that we've already established our own website during the performance cycle, which was launched earlier this year. And also it is an active website, and I'd humbly request honorable members to view. What was the projects? Installation of computers for the correctional center monitors, so that we could get real-time online information from our correctional center monitors. Whilst they are at the centers, they will be able to transect information right up to regions and including head office. We've also developed an integrated JICS MIS. We tried with the DCS e-corrections, and we are now currently working on our own MIS system, which is phase 2 out of our website. There you have it. We've developed the JICS mail server and the website. We have 359 user profile mailboxes, meaning those are our users currently active on the JICS domain. Our achievements, the integrated and upgrading of our entire telephone systems throughout the country, the procurement and installation of a wireless network, the procurement of LAN cabling and reconfigurations at the head office, the Northern Management Region, and our sub-head office here in Cape Town. Slide 39 is covered on page 110 and deals with the communications and media, which actually fosters an efficient and effective communication systems encompassing internal and external channels. Here again, Honorable Chair, honorable members, I'd like to just indicate that this position is vacant, and we have doubled up with other staff that are filling in this shoe to ensure that this work continues by JICS, especially external media platforms, engagements, and also the internal communication within the organization. Slide 41 is covered on page 111, and it deals with the media analysis and internal communications. You could notice that external communication was sitting at 198 engagements, where you would observe that the inspecting judge from time to time is presenting the work of JICS through media platforms, either print, publication, or even visual. and the internal communications that goes out to our entire workforce was 131 engagements. Social media presence, we have 839 followers on our Twitter, what you'd call X engagements. You'd find this on page 112. Other matters that are reported, the campaigns that we were involved in and that we were busy with, the books campaign of the Books for Dignity, which is a trump card and a brain of the inspecting judge, where books are distributed to all centers that are in need of learning, knowledge, information that have been distributed throughout the country. Many centers have been equipped with these books. We also ran a project on the incarcerated women earlier in August during the Women's Month celebration, and also the LGBTQI parade at the Durban Westworld Correctional Center, where the inspecting judge was the guest of honor at this function. There's other publications, JICS policies, SOPs, brandings, and a whole host of other engagements with the NPM visitations that take place. There we have it. It's our work for the 2023-2024. I will pause, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, and hand back to our inspecting judge if there's any additions from his side. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, CEO. Judge?
Many thanks, Madam Chair. And in his absence, I must just express a brief courtesy and regret to the Honourable Minister for not specifically mentioning him in the credits I paid at the start. But I want to thank our CEO and his whole team assembled there in the Cape Town boardroom for his presentation. I think it gives an adequate oversight from JICS's point of view. Our question, of course, as we discovered very rigorously when we presented a much smaller portion of this year's report, the Q1 report, to you, that your members have many rigorous and searching questions, and we are ready for them now. But before we do that, I would ask whether there are any executive members with Mr. Missa in the boardroom who wish to add points before our Honourable Chair takes questions from the members.
Judge, they're all quite on top of this, and they are ready for questions to be posed to them. Thank you.
Excellent. As you know, CEO, I love to put Ms. Nhlanzi Ngema on the spot at ease, but we will ask her to come in when appropriate questions are asked for her answering. Thank you, Honourable Madam Chair. We are respectfully ready for your members' probing.
Thank you so much, Judge Cameron and your team, CEO, for the presentation to the Portfolio Committee on your 2023-2024 annual report. Members, can I note hands for clarities, questions to JICS in relation to the report that they've presented before us? Honourable Engelbrecht, you'll start. Ms. James, you follow. Honourable Klote, you'll be the third hand. Honourable Moela, the fourth one. In that sequence, Honourable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to everyone, and thank you to JICS for a comprehensive report. I would like to know, in terms of hypoglycemia death, that only occurs when a type 1 diabetic sufferer administered either too much insulin or did not eat and went into a coma and died. This indicates either an undiagnosed individual or inefficient treatment. I want to know if JICS suspected any foul play in that specific case. Then overcrowding seems to be a perpetual problem, and it's known that a very large number of remand detainees lies at the heart of this problem. What measures do JICS propose to address this issue of gross overcrowding? How is JICS working to improve the functionality of parole boards? And is it true that the NCCS does not want to meet with JICS? And if so, what might the reasons for that be? What steps are being suggested to reduce the over-long period of pre-trial detention and unaffordable bail? Was there an engagement with the Department of Justice relating to bail below 1,000 Rand? What did JICS suggest to ensure that state patients are not detained for prolonged periods in correctional centers? Did JICS have discussions with the Department of Health relating to their problem of bed space and the Department of Justice that magistrates do not send these individuals to DCS? I don't think that either of these departments know to what extent DCS facilities are overcrowded. Relating to medical illness, is there any mechanism that suspected psychotic individuals can be isolated from the general population in remand detention sections? And how would you suggest severe drug withdrawal, which often leads to psychosis amongst remand individuals, are treated? Does any measures exist for opioid replacement treatment in order to get such individuals to a level of imputability? If not, would you be in favor of such treatment regimes? How is JICS managing its operations despite underfunding and undercapacitation, particularly in centers without ICCVs? Now, before the next question, I have to just say that I have appreciation for the extreme circumstances given the overcrowding that DCS personnel have to work in and obviously the risk it poses for increased violent behavior. What actions are being taken to prevent and address reports of assault and excessive violence by EST members? Would you be in favor of, and have you considered suggesting body cams as mandatory equipment for EST members? And my last question, how is JICS ensuring that LGBTQI+ inmates are not subjected to discrimination and exclusion? Thank you. From my side, that's all.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you,
with
Honourable.
your permission, Madam Chair, I don't know how you wish to arrange this. The Honourable MP has asked a range of questions. Would it be better if we try to answer those before subsequent questions to assist in not repeating but accumulating our answers?
Judge Cameron will do the same process that we do when you're appearing before us in a physical setting. Your team and yourself will note down questions from members, and when you respond, you'll respond holistically to all questions that would have been raised by members. Honourable Ms. James?
Thank you so much, Chair. I think I'm covered by Honourable Engelbrecht with regards to support for and treatment, the recommendations of JICS for support and treatment of inmates who are using drugs. And also the other question, has there been engagement between JICS and Department of Health with regards to the mental health patients, which is also covered? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. James. Honourable Claude?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chicks, for the presentation. I only have two questions, Chairperson. Issue of the LGBTQI community is recently involved, and that workshop took place. What were the outcomes of the workshop? What foods have been yielded, if any? What recommendation has Chicks made to the department regarding the safe incarceration of the LGBTQI community? The second question is, JICS raises the issue of providing medication in bulk as a cause of concern, especially considering the fact that inmate committed suicide Has the issue been raised with the department? What was the response? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Tsote. Honorable Moela.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, Judge Cameroon, the CEO of JICS and the team, and also portfolio committee members and also yourself, Chair. I think it has been an honor to finally have to be able to meet with the JICS what we call the SMS, the people who are being placed in the correctional center during our oversight visit, to be able to also get reports from them on the issues with regard to the complaints which the offenders are raising from day-to-day activities. It has indeed gave us a practical understanding of what the JICS monitors are doing in day-to-day activities in all our correctional facilities. So I do have some questions which I want to pose to the JICS team in relation to the presentation which was presented by the CEO. The first one is with regard to the handling down of the Songe judgment with regard to gender justice judgment which resulted in the functioning and financial independence of JICS. How have things practically improved in the daily functioning of the institution? Has any impact assessment been done with regard to the judgment which has been raised up to now? So the second one will be the report indicates that JICS engaged with the Department of Health with regard to the state patients. I think also our former colleague raised the matter in correctional centers. Given the fact that mental health issues are important, what fruits have those engagements yielded, if any? What is being implemented? How is the workshop which has been placed? And the other question will be with regard to the report which indicated that POSMO, as one of the maximum facility, was found to be unsatisfactory upon inspection. What are some of the challenges in particular in this center? How different are they from those which have been picked up before in the past years of the inspection of JICS in our correctional services? And the last question will be, in the last financial year, JICS have spent roughly 337 million on consultants. 337,000 on consultants. What were these consultants for? There is a zero budget for the period under review. Could we get clarity as to what was the consultant's duty for? Since this financial year, there is no budget with regard to the said consultants. That will be my questions, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Moela. Mrs. Ngaba.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a few questions. I want to start with the media slides. So I think it's the second to last, slide 41. What are those bar charts? So when you say external, is that a press release, like you released 116 of them, or is that media coverage? What does that slide mean? And then I also want to know how much of your budget is spent on communications and media. I want to know what is the effectiveness of your communications activities and expenditure. So how are you measuring that? How are you assessing whether it's effective? And then similarly, some of the campaigns that you've undertaken, how are you measuring the effectiveness? What are you spending on that? Are you getting value for money in that sense? And then I must admit, I have a question here, but I can't remember where I saw it yesterday. I see you spent almost 500,000 on training, and I wanted to know what that training was, what was the content of that, and assuming if that is an incorrect question, forget about it. But I also want to probe ICCV qualifications, training, vetting. I was worried by the caliber of some of the visitors we encountered on oversight last week. So can you say something about how much of your budget is spent on that and what does that training entail? And then similarly, on the issue of inmates who report issues to JICS, do you have any sort of budget, any sort of systems to support them in cases where they fear reprisals? How do you protect vulnerable people who report things to you? And then my last question is about the one judge, one jail. Is that still ongoing? How many of those happened over the past year? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ngaba. Honorable Mwali.
Greetings to you, Chair, and all honorable members, JICS. I am covered from other honorable members, the questions that they've asked already. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable Sokobo.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and greetings to the judge and the minister and deputy minister. Chair, I just wanted to check, especially to the judge, that with his colleagues, with the issues of RDs, is there any meeting set up coming in future? Is there any way that they are dealing with the issue that will assist in the reduction of this overcrowding? That's question one. Question two, I wanted to check what with the CEO, what is the career path of these ICVVs that they have? Is there any way of developing them? I see they are giving out bursaries. Are these ICVVs benefiting from these bursaries? And these bursaries, who are the beneficiaries of these bursaries? Is the CEO able to tell us per region or per province beneficiaries of these bursaries, race, gender, and so forth? That's for me to understand. I think some of the issues has been raised by some of the colleagues, but also I want to check this month-to-month of Cape Town's office. What is the rationale behind? Could it be that they are looking for a suitable place, the place is not suitable, or is there any other reason that would have informed them not to have a fixed term contract with where they are hosting or where they are having their offices in Cape Town? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sokobo. Judge Cameron, before you come in, I would make a few comments as well.
Chair, my hand is up.
Honorable Plakis, your hand was not up when I last noted Honorable Sokobo. You can come in.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to check from the judge on the office space and accommodation of these field workers at the prison from JICS. How is it impacting on the relationship between JICS and correctional services itself when they are hosted in the offices of the heads of correctional services? How is it affecting your independence? If in most times the officials are housed in the offices of most of the heads of the correctional services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Plakis. My clarities would be, since in the report you would have mentioned engagement with the department.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry for interruption. I thought you noted that my hand was up. Sorry for that.
Babgasa, you can come in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to greet all the people available on this virtual platform, Minister, DP Minister, Judge Cameroon, and JICS and the members. I would like to raise just few concerning points. Like the persistent challenges within South Africa correctional facilities are magnified by alarming overcrowding, exacerbated by the influx of foreign nationals fleeing instability in their home countries, including Zimbabwe, Somalia, and DRC. This situation not strain our already stressed prison system, but raises a serious concern about public safety, resource allocation, and efficacy of rehabilitation programs. So now, despite the portfolio committee's diligent oversight work, there have been troubling instances where correctional services shifted the blame for these issues onto public works. And it is unacceptable that the JICS has not effectively communicated these difficulties to the minister or the president, allowing such critical issues to fester without timely resolution. So other things that are concerning, like poor state of our facilities characterized by water leaks and poor ventilation, it reflects lack of oversight by JICS. How can they stand by while inmates suffer these conditions? And again, contraband smuggling. Despite existing protocols, contrabands, including illegal cell phones, continues to infiltrate our prisons. So where is JICS? Where is JICS accountability to enforce security measures? Why has there been no effective strategies to combat these issues? Staff misconduct. The involvement of warders in smuggling operations reveal a systematic failure in management and oversight. Why has JICS not instituted a rigorous accountability measures to root out corruption among staff members? The lack of lifestyle audit for prison officials raises a serious concern about their integrity and potential criminal involvement. Why is there no robust framework to assess the financial and ethical conduct of those entrusted with maintaining orders in our correctional facilities? Handling of foreign nationals. The increase of foreign nationals in our correctional facilities, it highlights a severe lack of policy direction from JICS. Why has there been no proactive engagements with foreign government to ensure accountability for their citizens? Should citizens not be alarmed by the government's failure to manage this crisis effectively? Why has JICS allowed the conditions in these facilities to deteriorate to this extent? I think it is time now for radical reform to address these pressing issues and ensure that South African inmates are prioritized over foreign nationals. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Babgasa. Judge, before you come in with your team, What engagement is JICS having with the department on the report made that DCS officials lack the capacity to handle mental incapacitated individuals? What intervention has JICS made in this regard? And I'm posing this on the basis that my colleagues would have raised matters of health inmates in the facilities. You further mentioned that providing of bulk medication, it's a cause of concern, especially considering the fact that an inmate committed suicide out of that. Has this issue been raised with the department? And if it has, what was the department's response in this matter? And if it hasn't been raised, why it hasn't been raised, seeing that there is a suicide in that? Given the fact that JICS is led by you, Judge Cameron, an inspecting judge, has the institution engaged the judiciary on the matter of bail, given the fact that a significant portion of inmates are remand detainees? And this would have been raised by Honorable Sokop, and bearing fact that you'd find those who are remand detainees struggling to even pay a little bail as 100 rands, 500 rands. We've seen this with Colesbeck Correctional Facility, that a number of inmates are incarcerated due to unable to pay for bail funds that are less than 500 rands. Has there been an engagement with yourself, inspecting judge, with the judiciary, since they are your colleagues and you are within that that level? With the last time you came to the portfolio committee, there might have been an indication that there are contracts of ICCBs that are coming to an end or would have been terminated. Does JICS have a retention plan for them, those contracts that have been terminated? What about issues of succession or integration in the organization? The last visit we did to JICS on Wednesday head offices, the CEO would have taken us through the office and also highlighted some vacancies in filling of post in the office. Has there been a consideration of some of this ICCB people to be considered for that integration in the office or in the department as a whole? And lastly, how many young people do we have that are within the SMS level? Or do we have young people in the SMS level, senior management staff? Thank you, Judge, and your team. You can come through. The last one before you come through, I would like to get clarity. How did you rate Modabi and Sun City Prison on yourself? I've been perusing the document. Maybe I'm not seeing the slide, but what was your rate on Modabi and Sun City? Thank you, Judge Cameron. You can come through.
Many thanks indeed, Madam Chair. I will answer some questions and I will then ask my team to come in. Those that I answer are those that I'm able to answer or that I've taken particular responsibility for in association with my colleagues. But if your committee will allow me, Madam Chair, just to say thank you very much for these questions, which are rigorous and probing and very uncomfortable. And many of them go to the very heart of the problems that we hit our heads against every day at JICS. And we thank this committee for its attunement to those problems, because this can only urge us and inspire us and energize us to joint efforts to fix this. May I start with your honourable member, Mr. Gasa? I do want to say that Mr. Gasa's points about what JICS should be doing are useful and they are encouraging, but they do lie beyond our powers. At present, under the Correctional Services Act, JICS has only 3 powers, which is to inspect, to report, and to investigate. We have no power, no executive power, no policy-making power, no disciplinary power, no managerial power over DCS whatsoever. The new bill, which has been hammered out with tears and joy together with DCS, the new bill for JICS will change that. We've chosen a middle option, and this bill will be shepherded by this committee after its own inspection of the bill. We will present it to this committee. It was in draft form before your predecessor, the much larger Justice and Corrections Committee. The new bill has a compromise. Some countries say you've got to do what the Inspectorate says. Some countries say, let the Inspectorate say what it wants. You can think whether you want to do it. We've gone for a compromise with DCS's buy-in, which is that JICS says do X, discipline X, speak to foreign government Y, all the things that Mr. Gasa said. And if we say that DCS must be doing those things as the departmental agent, the executive agent of prisons policy in the country, answerable to your committee, and they don't want to do it, they've got to tell us why. They've got to say, we're not going to talk to a foreign government because it's Minister Lamola's responsibility. But they've got to give a reason. So once they've got to give a reason, we can tackle them on it. So, Honourable MP, Mr. Gasa, we thank you for your pressing points, which go to the heart of so much malaise in our penal and carceral system, but they do not lie within JICS. Madam, may I take some issues which you've raised, which your colleagues have also raised, on mental health patients, mental wellness sufferers who need attention. We have engaged with the Department of Health. I thought, Madam Chair, that we were going to forward, and I'll ask my assistant and researcher, law clerk, Ms. Suraj Pal, just to send me a message on WhatsApp, and I can see it on the screen of my phone. We got a very long answer from the department saying what they are doing in order to, I see here, we did forward it to you. Ms. Suraj Pal is our indispensable help on all this. Madam, there's a long letter from the Department of Health that culminated in our exchange with them, and they said what they're doing. So I would ask, Madam Chair, that Mr. Mtongeni, will blame him for not circulating it. Mr. Mtongeni, kindly raise your hand if you plead guilty and shake your head if you plead not guilty. But that shows we've been engaging with the Department of Health for some considerable time. Madam, you also asked about engaging with the judiciary. We are doing that as well. There are considerable powers, as your committee knows. There's a power in the Correctional Services Act, there's a power in the Criminal Procedure Act, where the DCS itself can go back to the judiciary and say there are overcrowding conditions, reconsider bail. And again, to go back to Mr. Gasa MP's point, that is a power that lies with DCS, but we encourage them to use it. There are complex reasons why DCS doesn't always use those powers. It's laborious, it takes a lot of bureaucracy, and often magistrates don't accede to the orders the DCS requests. So I would just say we are pressing DCS, we press the judiciary, but it is a difficult one. The easier answer to your question, Honourable Madam Chair, and to Honourable MP Engelbrecht's question about bail, there's an easier answer, and the word easy shouldn't even be in our vocabulary, but relatively easier, is about the bail fund. We have, for the last 2 years, been pushing for the creation of a bail fund. A bail fund would lie outside the Department of Justice, outside the Department of Correctional Services, outside JICS. It would be a privately run fund with input from the NPA, from the judiciary, from your parliamentary committee. And it would offer to pay bail on selected crimes. We would leave out persons accused of violence, gender-based violence, and that sort of thing. But up to 5,000 prisoners, that's about 3% of the entire corpus of prisoners who are incarcerated at present, would be released if that bail fund were to work. We are not far from running a pilot project. The Bertha Centre at the University of Cape Town has been coordinating the research on it. It's not an easy issue, Madam Chair. I'm not suggesting that anyone on your committee thinks it is. Bail funds have been controversial in the United States, but we think they're essential, and we have to find out how they work. How do you advance the money? What do you do? How do you get the money back? Do you incentivize the person released on bail who wouldn't otherwise have been out? Do you incentivize them through SMSs, through reminders, through other conditions to attend their next court date? So we're working very hard on that, and it is promising. That's my answer to both the questions on overcrowding. I want to get back to the question of state patients. These are persons who have been declared by the courts under Section 77 and 78 of the Criminal Procedure Act to have mental wellness barriers to criminal accountability. We have in common with this committee, they should not be in prisons. They should be in appropriate psychiatric institutions. On Friday, Madam Chair, we are going to, Friday morning early, we are going to Sterkfontein, one of the biggest institutions in Gauteng, biggest institutions countrywide, to see what their capacity issues were. I was last there some years ago as a constitutional court judge, and we saw the facilities that they have. But we have been in touch extensively with both the Department of Health, as I've indicated, and the Department of Justice. What I want to add to my earlier answer, Madam Chair, is that Mr. Khoza, who is the Area Commissioner of Koshimampuru, whom you met on Wednesday last week, and whom you met again on Friday when we were going to have the debrief when we went to Boksburg, he made a suggestion that we've embodied, that we've embraced. He said, why don't you ask judges and magistrates not to use, the statute says that, quote, if necessary, a judge or magistrate can order someone with a mental health certification to go to a prison and not. And the reason they do that is the Department of Health says, whoa, don't send these people to us, we haven't got space. Well, DCS hasn't got space either. It's 55,000 human bodies overcrowded, DOH. So he suggests that we ask magistrates and judges to send people directly to, the order must say, go to a psychiatric institution and see how Department of Health copes with that. What we've done practically, I wrote to Judge President Mlambo, I wrote to Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba, who is chair of the Magistrates Commission. Judge President Mlambo has circulated this to all his judges in Gauteng for their feedback. Deputy Judge President Ledwaba, whom I saw last week, he's very much in favor of that idea, which is a bright spark idea from Mr. Khoza at Koshimampuru. I think that'll help. So all of that, just to say, it's a long answer, madam, just to say our hands are engaging with this. We are hands-on with that. With diabetic death, I will ask Madam Sabuta and Mr. De Souza to deal with that. Mr. Engelbrecht, I don't know if he was being naughty, Madam Chair, but your members have to be naughty. He was asking about the NCCS. We got divorced. We got sacked. We were dismissed. We started engaging with the NCCS some years ago, and it was just when my colleague and friend Judge Brian Mashile took over. He then left at the end of last year. Judge Leti Molopa Setosa took over, and we had what we considered to be very fruitful engagements with NCCS, which is the overarching parole body which deals mainly with lifers, but it also has powers over parole boards. We drew to their attention the dysfunction in parole boards. We had Ms. Sabuta, who's our executive in charge of regions, did an audit of parole boards that are dysfunctional, which are lacking a chair, which are lacking members, which have failed to take responsibility to replace members. And I'll ask Ms. Sabuta to come in on this as well. So we had fruitful engagements with them. We proposed legislative reforms to the LIFA backlog. We suggested that the minister should not have the sole and total ultimate responsibility to sign off on all LIFAs, but should have a veto, which would mean that they wouldn't accumulate on the minister's desk, as sadly they did on Minister Lamola's desk. And all credit to the incoming minister who sat down, and I believe he spent nights and weekends whittling down the backlog, which he has successfully done. So we had a fruitful relationship. And then my colleague, Judge Letty, who was a former student of mine, she came to see me. She said, I don't want to be rude, but my members say, where's the statutory authority for engagement with you? I said, well, it's not in the statute. It's because we're both concerned about the functioning of the parole process. You for your reasons, we for our distinctive reasons. And we got the sack. Judge Letty was very gracious. She is a gracious person. So we haven't taken offense. It's out in the public now. We were divorced. And there are going to be no more regular meetings between JICS and NCCS, which we humbly regret, Madam Chair. I'm going to, can I just say something about the EST? I recently met Mr. Ramashala, who is the head of training at EST. And the EST are the emergency team that secure prisons in the case of any difficulty, that secure the safety. When we visited, and you yourself, Madam Chair, and your members had EST members there, but they have, in our view, been guilty of excess. And Mr. Ramashala told me, he said, we value JICS's reports, we value JICS's complaints, we are incorporating them in our training. And Mr. Engelbrecht asked a very good question about body cams. Body cams have become so cheap now that the technology is accessible at a much. The other solution, which we've formally asked DCS to implement, is visible name tags, not these tiny little things that you can't see when you meet someone from DCS. You have to have the names big, like on Army, on the jersey, on the tunic, on the shirt. And if you don't want to have the EST's names on the shirt, my colleague, Mr. Leonard de Souza, came up with an idea that he heard is implemented elsewhere in the world. You give EST members numbers, but you say to JICS, here's the numbers. And you can then link allegations of excess, of violence, of brutality, of abuse of power, which are frequent on the part of the MC. You can link it to member 38 or member 232 or member number 1. And we ask the portfolio committee's support for that. Madam Chair, I want to give my colleagues chance. There are other things that I can. The one judge, one jail is very much in process. We have been waiting to meet. We met with Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. We're waiting to meet with incumbent Chief Justice Mandisa Maya. She took over on the 1st of September. She's had the JSC meetings. We're hoping to get an engagement with her early, because as your members imply by asking the question, and I think it was Ms. Nava who asked the question, if every judge, 240 judges, visit only one correctional center per year, 240 correctional centers, you'll have much more rigorous oversight. And may I just repeat, if the committee hasn't heard it already, I've not yet been on an inspection where both the personnel and the inmates welcome the inspection. The personnel welcome the inspection because it shows us what they're doing, how hard their job is. And the inmates welcome the inspections because they hope that we can provide improvement. I'm going to leave quite a lot of Mr. Plaki's questions, Mr. Sokopo's question, and Mr. Plaki's question to Ms. Sabuta and Ms. Ngema, and to our CEO, and to Ms. Mukari, and to Mr. De Souza. And I want to just say one thing, because your members have asked about LGBTIQs. At Durban Westville, there's a voluntary segregation unit, which is very well run. That was the unit that invited us back because we provided them with amenities that they didn't have in the rest of, that they didn't have, unlike the rest of the prison, like pool tables and cards and so on. And we got a private donor to make those available to Durban Westville. But I want to make an important point, and then I'm going to ask my colleagues to come in. LGBTIQ self-identified people are different from people who engage in same-sex conduct. I'm a self-identified queer man, I'm a proudly gay man, but the people who identify as LGBTIQ are a minority of people. Inside prisons, sexual activity occurs even when you segregate LGBTIQ people. In fact, the international rate of same-sex activity in male-only constrained environments, when men are herded together and forced away from what for most of them is their natural sexual objective, which is the opposite sex. That is very high. I can give the figure to you, but it's a very high figure of straight men who, in constrained same-sex circumstances, engage in some form of sexual activity. So when we talk about sexual abuse, we're not necessarily talking about those persons who say, yes, I'm a gay man, yes, I'm a queer man, yes, I'm a lesbian woman. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I do beg my colleagues now to come in with the questions that I have omitted to answer.
Thank you so much, Honorable Judge. Let's share this. I think there's some areas that Madam Ngema will start off with, and then we'll move to Madam Sibuta to cover a bit in her division. We'll also request Mr. Brewers to cover some of the HR-related issues on training, etc. And then last but not least, we'll ask Mr. D'Souza to cover some of the areas that he likes to add, and then maybe I will just wrap up in the end. Please.
Thank you, CEO. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, and honorable members and the colleagues on the platform. I'm going to take the question on what
Mrs. Ngema, can we have the video on so that we know who we are talking to? We've seen the judge, CEO. Can we also see all those who will be responding?
Thank you, Chair. I think I am visible now. I'm going to take the question on whether there has been any improvement subsequent.
Mrs. Ngema, you have two mics on. You have the JICS boardroom and yours on.
Okay, now say, Chair, it's sorted now. I'm going to take the question whether there has been any improvement subsequent to the handing down of the Sonke Gender Justice judgment. I will say it is work in progress. On the 1st of April this year, JICS was proclaimed as a national government component. And subsequent to that, the Correctional Services Amendment Act also was passed into law, making provision for the CEO to be the accounting officer for JICS, although the listing of JICS as a national government component has not been yet done, as the CEO has alluded in his presentation earlier, that the notice is with the President through the Office of the Minister. So we are just waiting for JICS to be listed in the Public Services Act as a national government component. And also with regards to the Correctional Services Amendment Act, the act has not yet come into operation, and also there are engagements between the office, our office, and the Office of the Minister with regards to the coming into operation of the Correctional Services Act. And also, lastly, the JICS bill is on the pipeline. We are on version 21 of the JICS bill. We did indicate when we appeared before the portfolio committee previously that we are working on the JICS bill. So we are hoping that by the end of next year, we will have a JICS bill promulgated into law. Thank you very much. I will hand over to my other colleagues.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members, our inspecting judge, the CEO, and the JICS executive, and all the entire colleagues that are on the platform. I am Mrs. Sibota because I think I'm not reflected. I will touch on the JDI training, maybe just to add on what—
Mrs. Sibota, can we have your video on so that we see who is Mrs. Sibota? We have seen Ms. Ngema.
My apologies, Chair. I will touch on the JDI SA training that was conducted to indicate that we have trained all the ICCVs that are appointed by JICS. 161 of them were trained in the past financial years, and we are to train 46 of them, and the training is scheduled for 30 and 31 October. Yes, indeed, the training by JDI has yielded positive results in the sense that our ICCVs are capable now of being able to deal with LGBTQI+ community and also assist them where possible. The only part that is lacking that we are in engagements with JDI is also to expose DCS officials in this training so that they can be able also to deal with those, but those trainings have yielded positive results. Also, to add on the one judge, one jail project, there was a question as to how many. We had 3 of them that took place, wherein they were judges that visited the East London Medium B. It was on the 24th of April, 2023, and also St. Albans. It was on the 18th of May, 2023. And the last one was in East London Medium C on the 27th and 28th of February, 2024. Indeed, we are also encouraging other judges to visit the correctional facilities. This project, it is ongoing. Coming to the question regarding the office space of ICCVs, how is it affecting JICS independence? Because they are sitting in the offices of the heads of correctional centers. Yes, indeed, currently JICS, we do not have the space for the ICCVs, but we are constantly reminding them, emphasizing them that they need to ensure their independence. Indeed, there were some of the incidents that were reported to us of some of our ICCVs, allegedly that they are captured by DCS, but on continuous basis, we do have supervisory meetings. We do have meetings with regional managers and ICCVs, and also our office, wherein we discuss those issues. They ensure their independence. Unfortunately, the current situation, it doesn't allow us to have office space due to budget constraints. The last one that I will talk about that the IJ has requested me to touch on, it is regarding the parole boards. Yes, as the IJ has indicated, we have been divorced by NCCS, and we were having fruitful discussions, and we were also hoping that we will continue so that all the complaints that we are receiving related to parole matters can be resolved in that platform, because most of the provinces, they will refer some of the complex complaints to us so that we table to the NCCS. I must also indicate, Chair, that this section, it is a section that we see that maybe there is lack of supervision and also in terms of ensuring that they are taken good care of. If you go to the DCS website and you check under parole boards, you will find out that the names that are currently appearing are the names of the chairpersons and vice chairpersons that are no longer on the system. We did bring this to the attention of NCCS in one of the previous quarterly meetings. I think I even raised or cited one example of the chairperson that was in Kokstad around 2008 and passed on. But when you go to the system, you will find his name still appearing. So it is an area that urgently needs attention. So in terms of the information, in May 2024, which is still, it was still the same information when we reported in our annual report. There were 10 vacancies of chairpersons for parole boards, and there were 9 vacancies of vice chairperson. And in terms of the community members, there were 36 vacancies across the regions. The region that is most affected, it was Free State and Northern Cape, which had a number of vacancies. And we also need to table or record that should there be vacancies of parole boards, much as the Department of Correctional Services, they do have roving parole boards, but it does affect in terms of meeting the quorum in terms of the sittings for the parole boards. We are hoping that those posts or positions that are vacant will be filled or they have been filled. There were even instances where some of the contracts were coming to an end and they were brought to our attention and the inspecting judge intervened and some were renewed. I will pause the CEO, chairperson and colleagues and hand over to other colleagues to respond. Thank you, Chair.
CEO, are we done or there's someone still coming?
There is Mr. Brewers.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. Yes, I only got a few items I want to report on and maybe to expand a little bit also. And there was a question about the consultation fees. That consultation fees was actually for our editing of our the consultation and professional fees. The amount of 337,000 rand was actually for what we call for the editing of our annual report. That was last year. And printing, of course. This year we have done some shiftings, and it is on a different program. In terms of let me just also talk about the training. The training, what was it? The amount of, I think it was 500, just over 500,000. It was actually for our assistant directors and deputy directors. And that it was actually for the training in what we call the Advanced Development Management Program. That actually benefited a lot to all our assistant directors and deputy directors. I just want to a little bit expand on the protection of our ICCVs. What is very important to note, and I just want to add, is that we do have what we call a grievance procedure, of course. We also have an open door policy where the ICCVs has the openness and willingness to come and discuss it with us. We as management, depends on how far and how deep the problems, we will discuss with the respective head of correctional centers, and even if a judge need to get involved, we do that. There was also a question on bursary allocations. Unfortunately, bursary allocations is just for permanent staff. The reason why this is that where the bursary holder must actually enter into a contract with JICS and the time period, because normally we actually just cover long certificates, not certificates, but diplomas and degrees, 3 years and up. And we enter into what we call a contract with the individual bursary holders. That and this is not just JICS, but it's all over in government. Only permanent staff is allocated with bursaries. And the reason that is also if we're in an event that there's a debt created, we need to actually to recover these debts as well. There was also a question of a ICCB contract expiring. There was a few. We managed to find some money in our budget COE, and we have now for the interim have extended most of those contracts for a period of 6 months, not more than 6 months for this current financial year. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think we'll just bring in the head of investigations and also inspections to comment on Model B, Sun City, as you requested. I'll bring in Mr. Leonard D'Souza. Thanks. Mr. D'Souza.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm just trying to get the video sorted out. But let me start so long.
We can see you.
Oh, thank you very much. Regarding, Honorable Chair and members, regarding the death of the inmate who was a known diabetic, I can confirm that he did have all his medication with him in bulk and that he used that to overdose. So that is why he passed on. We always recommend medication to be given on a daily basis, not in bulk. And we know that some centers comply, some don't. Regarding Model B, it was on the border of unsatisfactory when we inspected it in February. And we'll go back and have a look again in our next unannounced inspections. Then Johannesburg Medium A, unsatisfactory in August. And Paulsmoor is also unsatisfactory. The kitchen, the cleanliness, the infrastructure, and the overcrowding was a problem for us. I think that's about it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Maybe I'll just try and see if I can wrap up most of the issues. The one on the underfunding, I think that's critically important to us to take note that the purse of government is strained. And what had happened was over the last 2 performance cycles, with the implementation of COLA, which is the cost of living adjustment, had swallowed up all our monies that we had for our vacancies. And therefore, we sit now with these positions not having funds. Now, with the red tape that is in place for us to request confirmation from National Treasury in order for us to approach DPSA to advertise these positions, we cannot get this certification because we do not have money on our budget. So I think that covers that issue of underfunding, although I've alluded to in my presentation that this process is being dealt with in the budgeting process and the MTEF. I'd like to just add a little bit about the body cams, but I think it goes one step beyond that. Although Judge has made suggestions and written representations to the National Commissioner to consider body cams, I think many years ago, maybe 2 years ago, we've conducted an assessment or survey of the non-functionality of CCTV cameras within the places of confinement. And this is what of concern is the number of X-ray machines, body scanners, etc., that's non-functional. And I think this is something that is critically important in order for us to address the passing through of counterbrands into our places of confinement. The budget on the communications as requested by one of the honorable members, Kobita. I think we have a special allocation for monies allocated for print, media, amongst others. And just to highlight, some of the monies that have been utilized was for advertising of our branding, which equated to just under 260,000 rand. I just want to add on the one judge, one jail, which Judge has also spoken about, and colleagues. We went one step further, Honorable Chair, honorable members. We've now tried during the performance of this cycle to bring in the lower judiciary. We've consulted the Chief Magistrates Forum, and we sold the product similar to the one judge, one jail. And it's a much more simplified tool in order for the judiciary to take some form of responsibility of oversight within their respective jurisdictions. So this is an ongoing project. We've already received a number of reports from chief magistrates, and which would unfold in our quarterly reports as we go ahead. I would pause, and I would ask the inspecting judge to come back on to close our session. Thanks. Oh yes, so sorry, the young SMS members. I think that's the one. Yeah, we have actually 6 SMS positions on our structure. 2 of these positions are unfunded. 4 of them are filled currently. And you've already listened to 4 of us that has been presenting to you. So we are hoping through the budgeting process that if we secure the funding through the budgeting process and through National Treasury, we will then be able to fill those with younger comrades. Maybe I'll just, on the month-to-month Cape Town accommodation, this has been now currently addressed. It's now been extended for a contractual period of another 3 years. So I think that's already been taken care of. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much, CEO, and many thanks indeed to all colleagues. Madam Chair, before we submit ourselves to your further scrutiny and your members' further scrutiny, may I just add one thing? Because several of your members, including Mr. Sekopo and Mr. Engelbrecht and other members, asked about what JICS is doing about the overcrowding. And this is an issue that we raised with your predecessor committee, which was the large, cumbersome Justice and Corrections Committee. Our belief is that we went on a wrong turn with the minimum sentencing legislation in 1998. In saying that, Madam Chair, we don't say that there aren't violent perpetrators of ghastly crimes who deserve to be in prison for a very long time, perhaps forever. We don't say that. What we do say is that what happened in 1998 under your predecessor, Mr. Johnny de Lange, the first chair of the Justice and Corrections Committee, was that we chose to use prisons to stop crime instead of using crime intelligence, police work, and leadership to stop. That is the way to deal with crime. The murder rates, the rate of violent crime in our country has gone up since 2011. It is one of the highest in the world now, and all of us around this table are gravely concerned by it. Many of your members, Madam Chair, I'm sure, have been affected personally by it. That was the year in which the former president, then in power, appointed Mr. Richard Mdluli, who was a criminal, to head crime intelligence, and crime intelligence collapsed. Crime intelligence became a weapon of political destruction, and that's why we now have rampant extortion gangs, we have rampant copper cable theft, rampant zamazamas, because of a lack of policing, crime intelligence, and follow through by the NPA. That's a mini sermon with your gracious consent, Madam Chair, but the point is that JICS has been advocating that. Everything I've just said, I said to your predecessor committee. We had a special seminar on it at our request with your predecessor committee. Some of your members would have been there. And the committee undertook to consider this. The favorite statistic that I have, and the only one I need to use, is that in 1995, South Africa has 440 or 450 prisoners serving life imprisonment. We now have over 18,000. And that is not to say that many of them deserve to be there for even longer than life, but the sentence inflation has been inefficient in keeping us all safe and protected. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Judge Cameron, and your team for the response on clarities and questions that members would have posed or seeked from the report. Members, did all your questions get clarified or responded to before we do follow-ups? Mrs.
Chair,
Maba?
my hand is up. My questions.
I can see your
Sorry,
hand
Chair,
is
if you don't mind, I'm going to keep my.
Okay.
I'm going to keep my camera off because I think my connection is unstable.
Honorable Engelbrecht, you'll follow.
Yep. So, Chairperson, I asked two questions. Number one, I asked for someone to please explain what slide 41 means. All that bar graph on there, are those media articles that were out? Are those just press statements that maybe no one even covered? So what I'm trying to ascertain is the report talks about the importance of effective communication, but there's no indication here of that JICS is actually measuring the effectiveness of its communications. The other thing I asked was about the training of ICCVs. So they mentioned that all the ICCVs got the LGBTQIA training, but my question was about the training in the fundamentals of the job. Is it a 1 hour PowerPoint? Is it a 6 hour course? How are these people prepared for such a critical job? Yeah, and what's being done? I was not impressed by the quality of ICCVs that we came across. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the one question that relate to mental illness amongst remand detainees, where if I can repeat the question, is there any mechanism that suspected psychotic individuals can be isolated from the general population in remand detention centers? And how do you suggest treatment of severe drug withdrawal, which often leads to psychosis amongst remand individuals? And then does any measure exist for opioid replacement therapy in order to get such individuals to a level of imputability? And if not, would JICS be in favor of any such treatment suggestions? Thanks.
Thanks, Honorable Engelbrecht. Honorable Sokopo.
Thank you, Chair. I think the CEO have responded to the Office of Cape Town matter. I did not really capture them. What are they saying about? I also see that they responded on the bursaries that is only meant for permanent staff, but nothing is really says about the ICVVs. Whether will there ever be a career pathing for them, or this thing of being ICVV, they will do it till they no longer have capacity to do it. But what is the rationale behind it? And on my previous time when you gave me an opportunity to speak, I think I wanted to raise, because during our visit last week, there were serious issues raised at UNISA Hub at Josemampur, which I think that in the main there were challenges that JICS is not attending to the challenges that the UNISA Hub inmates are facing. And to me, I'm of the view that those are already people that are really showing high level of rehabilitation. The fact that they are taking through academics at that level, serious, we were all there, and I'm sure some of those inmates are highly educated and some of us. Can the JICS go back and give next time a report to us as to, in particular to UNISA Hub, what has been doing in attending to such issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Judge Cameron and team.
Many thanks, Madam Chair. With regard to Mr. Sokopo's inquiry and the urgency of it, we thank him for that. And yes, certainly, we will go back there. If we've been remiss, we will redouble our efforts and we will report back the next time we come to your committee, or we can even do it by letter beforehand. Then, Madam Chair, Mr. Sokopo's colleague, Mr. Engelbrecht, asks an interesting question about remand detainees with psychosis or other mental wellness issues. That is an operational issue that lies primarily with DCS. They do have means of segregating people, but the underlying theme of Mr. Engelbrecht's question is, of course, that those availabilities are very they're very scarce and mostly not accessible. So you have the difficulty of these most of the overcrowding in our system occurs in the remand centers. So we have 50,000 plus remand detainees, 100,000 plus sentence detainees, but the remand detainees are undoubtedly in a worse position overall, especially in the main centers. And for the reason that I've just given, Mr. Engelbrecht's supposition that this is not well managed, the psychosis and mental wellness issues amongst remand detainees is, I fear, correct. But Madam Chair, may I just ask your indulgence and your members' brief attention for a further point, because Mr. Engelbrecht raises the very, very important issue of substitution therapy for drug use. And that is another issue that I did broach with your predecessor committee, the Cumbersome Justice and Corrections Committee. When I speak now, I want you to know that I'm not speaking personally. I'm speaking also on behalf of former President Kgalema Motlanthe. He has signed, together with many former presidents of the world, South American, Central American, European and African presidents, including former President Obasanjo from Nigeria, a declaration that says, don't criminalize drugs. Drugs are like alcohol. They are addictive, they are dangerous, they are bad. But like alcohol, you mustn't criminalize them. What happens when you criminalize drugs is you encourage the gangs, the Cape Flats gangs. Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that, and I used Mr. Engelbrecht's question about substitution therapy as a hook to say that, to repeat that before this committee, because it's something that legislative reform, maybe this parliament, the 7th parliament, will address this. Portugal's done it. Many of the states of the United States have done it. It's been a success. Violence goes down, abreactions go down, deaths go down, heartbreak goes down. When you remove it, you say this is bad, but it's a public health issue. We're going to offer you substitution therapy. And that's the hook I used to bring this issue to your committee's attention. I thank you, Madam, for your members' courtesy and for your courtesy as well.
Thanks, Judge. Did you respond to all questions, or that they've been posed, or the CEO will come through?
The CEO, I responded only to the UNISA Hub and to Mr. Engelbrecht. CEO, please.
Yes, no, thank you, Judge. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Maybe the issue of ICCV career pathing and its program, its training program, whether there is any success in this. One has to unpack this in what we would call a 1-week intensive training program orientation, where they are taken through a curriculum of approximately 12 modules, capacitating them on the ins and outs of a correctional center and the do's and don'ts in their competence. So this is on table. No ICCV is placed in any correctional center who has not undergone what we would call this induction program. There is always a need for continuous learning, And we have also reflected on certain pockets of areas that we need to concentrate and train our ICCVs on. As you might be aware, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, it's again all aligned to the cut in the budgets and the shoestring budget that we have. Career pathing, we have many in our organization that has grown from an ICCV right up to what we would call the head of national inspections, Mr. D'Souza himself. And there's many others that has found their feet into the organization and also has contributed to the development of JICS as a whole. So it is a career pathing organization that looks inward first before it looks outward. I'd like to just add on the slide 41, which is contained on our page 111 of the annual report, and that deals with the media analysis and the internal communication. When we talk of 198 external, it means that we had 198 encounters with some media house outside, either print, publication, or visual. And that has been transected in our books and is readily available to submit. The 131 in this instance talks about internal communications within our workforce, so that all our workforce on board is acquainted with all information, from a policy to a standard operating procedure to general circulars, and it goes on to many other areas which we inform our workforce on. I think I've covered the two broad areas. Thank you, Judge. For the CT office, not clear, I think that has been extended by DBWI. We have the contract, the lease agreement in place, meaning that it's not anymore on a month-to-month basis. It is now on a 3-year extended contract. Thank you, Judge. I'm sorry I come in.
Thank you very much, CEO. And Madam Chair, subject to any further significations from my colleagues at JICS, that comprises our response to your committee's probing.
Thank you so much, Judge Cameron and the team. Members, do you have any follow-ups, questions that you'll want to pose on the responses that you would have received? There's no follow-up question. Members are satisfied, Judge Cameron and your team, on the responses that you would have given. And let me again further congratulate you on leading your first annual report as JICS, being independent from DCS, and also being able to table that annual report in time in the portfolio committee. Congratulations, Judge Cameron and your team. And again, sincere apologies, Judge Cameron, for delaying you on last week on the oversight on Wednesday, when we're supposed to go through the JICS head office with you leading the delegation of JICS to show us the head office offices. We're delayed in Koshimampur, and part of the delay that we received was interacting with inmates in the UNISA hub, as one of the members would have alluded to UNISA issues, to such an extent that we even said JICS ICCV centers who are based in Koshimampuru to remain and further have an interaction with inmates so that we can proceed with the oversight in receiving report. I've received your letter, we've noted it. The CEO was kind enough to be able to take members through the head office. And we were quite pleased and happy to see that JICS is accommodated in a well-functioning building, and we hope there will be no issues in the years to come because of its quite new building. Based on the UNISA hub, we would love to get the analysis on the inmates on UNISA hub. We also interacted with inmates in the CMEX in Koshimampuru, who equally raised issues with the isolation part of staying, they're being locked up for 23 hours, vis-a-vis what the department says more of 18 hours to 20 hours. So would also like, would recommend that JICS as well, those ICCV who are based in Kosimampuru, to also further probe on those who are in the CMEX, so that when you appear before the portfolio committee to give us a detailed report on the UNISA Hub inmates, it also includes the CMEX issues, especially on those inmates. Those who were part of the delegation of oversight from your side would know who were those inmates speaking to the portfolio committee. We had to leave because of now when one speaks, others are probed to want to speak and will not be able to finish. If we can also be solicited with that further information. Quite happy with the Modapi and Sons, formerly known as Sun City, Johannesburg Correctional Facility, on your rating as unsatisfactory, on the basis that Modapi, it's a West Correctional Facility that we have done oversight last week in its standing on how it's been managed, and issues of infrastructure as well. Johannesburg Correctional Facility, it would be also on the kitchen. Mr. D'Souza would have highlighted the kitchen, the cleanliness and so forth. Would also appreciate if you pay attention to the centers in trying to find mitigation together with the department on how, especially on Modapi, consequence management can be adhered to. And also the scope of inmates, because when we arrived at the oversight, I think they were eating breakfast around, I think 10 to 10:30. And it was quite a bit late, bearing the times that in facilities they eat breakfast. I think it's also on the basis that their food requires to be transported from Bosbeck Correctional Facility to Modapi, so that takes time. But if they can be a consideration, and the shift that works in Bosbeck can start early, so that transportation also does not get to be delayed, so that food arrives in time, so that we do not find ourselves with inmates that are complaining about not getting food or not getting food on time. On the NCCS relation with yourselves, it's quite unfortunate and regretful that the once was a relation between the two stakeholders no longer exists. And we hope in future, whatever would have caused the collapse of JICS and NCCS gets to be attended to. The matter will raise with the minister as well when he appears before the committee next week, so that whatever issues gets to be attended to, because it's of important that structures within the correctional service coexist and work with each other in finding ways to make sure that inmates are treated within the humane way, so that we do not find ourselves violating the human rights conditions, and also NCCS be able to also deal with issues of paroles in interacting with JICS, because you are a custodian of inmates, to make sure that everything goes according to the acts of correctional services. We hope that when you get a go-ahead based on the CEO response, when you get that approval from DPSA on your vacancies to be funded based on seeking more money from Treasury, when you do fill those vacancies, you would make a consideration as well from the ICCVs, those whose contracts have been terminated, so that also there is a growth path in their employment. They are not seen only occupying ICCVs, but there's growth within that sector, and be considered or integrated in also your equity plan of JICS head office or provincial offices, promotions and so forth. And it's unfortunate that ICCVs have been terminated. The contracts have been terminated, especially since you do not have all centers having ICCVs. So where they are existing, we must make sure that we maintain the status quo, because they are direct people that interact with inmates and listens to outcries. If there's an incident, they are the ones who are supposed to investigate. So it's of important that the status quo remains, and we must be able to get those who are terminated, find a way to bring them back, or also outsource on others to come on board on that. On the Chief Magistrate program that you would have alluded to, including the CEO alluded to, let's strengthen that relations that already it's existing, and make sure that anything that hinders the relation to proceed well, it gets attended to, so that you are able to curb or find ways to mitigate issues of overcrowding. And if chief magistrate are on board on the program, then it assists JICS with its core mandate. So would comment that there is a relation that has already been created, and let's make sure that it gets to maintained and strengthened, Judge Cameron, for future purposes. It might assist alleviate the pressure of correctional facilities when the chief magistrates are taking rulings and so forth, bearing or considering that correctional facilities are overcrowded as it is. As you would know, that the facilities or the department is an end user. It receives inmates from SAPS and justice system. So if there is a relation that already exists between yourself and the justice system through the chief magistrate, let's monitor that and strengthen it so that it equally assists in the overall work. So those are recommendations we're putting, Judge Cameron, to yourself and your team to try work on in making sure that there is effectiveness on your work. So there's a recommendation that we're putting as the portfolio committee that you would need to consider when you implement further your annual report. Any parting words, Judge?
Just a word of indebtedness to you, Madam Chair, including for the exertions and arduous commitment that you and your committee showed last week, and for the reasons you've just given in relation to chief magistrates and their greater presence in correctional centres. Very much the same applies with acclamation to the engagement and oversight of your committee. And on behalf of all my colleagues at JICS, our indebtedness to you and our thanks to you for this morning.
Thank you so much, Judge Cameron, and thank you for your team for coming on board on the oversight, the long oversight week of last week. It was quite heavy and strenuous, but we do appreciate, especially with the Friday unannounced visit, considering that there would have been a message that says there would be a debrief meeting. Instead, we ended up doing an unannounced and post-back facility. We appreciate the support from JICS, and equally for JICS being with us the whole week. Thank you so much, Judge Cameron, and your team. Sia, do we have any, or before Sia comes in, colleagues, next week it's a physical sitting, 22 October in Parliament. Sia will issue out a communication. Sia, in that communication, let's add a report from the minister with regards to the profiles that he would have received from the NCCS in addressing the backlog that he would have received when he got into the office. I believe he would have made a commitment to the portfolio committee that on the 15th he would have concluded all the backlog that he would have received, the remaining ones. So I believe he wanted to report on it. So he would report on it next week when he appears before the portfolio committee to take us through the vacancies in the department. Sia, do we have any announcement outside this that members should know?
No, Chair. We'll send out the communication after the meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Judge Cameron and your team for coming through to the Portfolio Committee. Members, thank you, and colleagues on the platform for coming through. The meeting officially stands adjourned.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable members, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See ya.
Chair.
I think those
Recording
who are still
stopped.
remaining in the platform, either they're not with their gadgets. Mrs. Dial.
Good now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
I'm
you.
using a small phone, so I'm trying to get to those buttons. I'm stuck. But I'm with you and goodbye, my chair.
Bye.